Hello everybody, welcome back to my movie review series. Today we'll be discussing The Departed. You know, we do it on these ones. First and foremost, nobody's gonna watch anything I do. God, I wish someone just had the decency to fucking shoot me. I'll give you my overall impressions and grade. Past that, if you've not watched the movie and would like to, based or not based on my recommendation, you're gonna wanna shut off the video because there will be spoilers. We'll be discussing the plot synopsis and character development. Similar movies and major themes, not really, just an action. Cops and robbers action script again, which wasn't bad. So I've just seen it 1,000 times. So I had not seen this one before. Originally it's a crime/drama, released in 2006, rated R, runtime 2 hours and 31 minutes. 85% liked it on Metacritic, 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, 8.5 out of 10 on IMDb, and 92% liked it on Google. Directed by Martin Scorsese. A ton of big names in this one. But where's the South Boston cop Billy Costigan, Leonardo DiCaprio, goes undercover to infiltrate the organization of gangland chief Frank Costello, Jack Nicholson. As Billy gains the mobster's trust, a career criminal named Colin Sullivan, played by Matt Damon, infiltrates the police department and reports on its activities to its syndicate bosses. With both organizations learn they have a mole in their midst, Billy and Colin must figure out each other's identities to save their own lives. So overall, that was a little long. I thought you could have done the story a little, maybe with like 20 less minutes and still be the exact same production. Obviously a huge cast, a lot of big names. Interesting seeing it. It was released in 2006. Interesting watching it now when they're a lot older. They always look so young. But we have, I would say, good action, good crime development drama. Nothing super unique. And cops and robbers figuring out the bad guy. Nothing, no secret plot development past that of what was read. Good action flick, a little long. I like the tone of it, so I'm going to give it a solid B. Would have been a B+, it was a little shorter, but I thought it was entertaining. I think it was B. So there's what you got for that. If you've not seen the movie and would like to based on that, you're going to want to shut off the video now. So you open up and you have the Colin Sullivan and Will Costigan. They're both, well, first you see Colin Sullivan as a young child, like, being kind of like, not groomed, but introduced to Frank Costello. He pays for some groceries, and then you see him a little older, like, hanging out by his shop. So then you fast forward to modern day, or at least their present day in 2006, and both Colin and Will are going through the police training cadet program. And so Colin gets a good recommendation, and he's the one being planted by Frank Costello. So he becomes an officer and then quickly becomes a sergeant. And so he's got some responsibility and some authority in the police department. And you have Will Costigan, it comes from like his whole family's like criminals. And so the police officers are like grilling him. And then you have their immediate supervisors or above people is the Mark Wahlberg character, which I can't read the name, Sergeant Dig something, but the Mark Wahlberg character who is under Captain Queen something is played by Martin Sheen. You just can't see the full names on the cast list, of course, because I would require Google to be fucking functionally competent at anything. And then you have, that's the structure of the police department. And then you have Frank Costello and all of his goons. And so Will Costigan's getting roasted about from Mark Wahlberg and Captain Queen. Is like, are you just being planted here by your family or by, I don't think even necessarily Frank Costello, but just are you here to really be a cop? Or are you here to like be an informant for the criminal organizations? And so Will is actually a straight-laced cop, or trying to be, but his assignment is basically to go to prison for an actual amount of time and then go undercover and report on Frank Costello. And so he does that, goes to jail. And Colin is the sergeant of like internal investigations or something, or gets promoted to that at some point in the movie. But he gets out and he goes and approaches Frank Costello. Well, first up, he roughs up two dudes. He beats them up pretty well. I guess they were from Providence, Rhode Island. And so Frank Costello approaches Will Costigan and is like, these guys are gonna come to kill you. I can take care of that for you. But are you a cop? And so he's got this broken arm from fighting, or at least an injured or bruised arm or something. And so Frank, beats on his arm pretty bad, but interrogates him to see if he's really really trying to be in the mafia or just organized crime world, or if he's a cop trying to spy on him. So Will passes that test, and then he starts running around with, I would say, Frank Castella's right-hand man in this one is called Mr. French. And so Will, you have some preliminary scenes where Frank and Mr. French execute a couple people and just set the tone of these people, big mobsters or whatever. And so Will starts running around with Frank's group. In addition to having to go to prison, creating a convincible backstory, he has to go to therapy, and the therapy chick is Dr. Madeline something. I can't say the last name, played by Vera Farmiga. But so he has to go there. They have a tense interaction. Colin, the Matt Damon character, who's Frank's rat, starts hits on Dr. Madeline in the elevator and gets her number, and they go to dinner. And so throughout the movie, Colin and Dr. Madeline are dating, and Will has to go to her basically just one time. He has to go to a therapist, to keep his undercover story. It goes to her one time. They have a tense interaction. Their relationship throughout the movie is kind of strange to me, but we'll get to that. And so they just start running around doing stuff. So pretty quickly, again, both sides realize they both have a rat, Colin being for Frank in the police department, and Will being from the police and Frank's crew. And so the first big kind of there's only two big actual criminal sellings or dealings or whatever. But Will goes along with Mr. French, and he kills some dude. I don't know if they're just collecting money. He busts out somebody's teeth on accident because he thought he was going for a gun. Just typical mob stuff, day to day running an organized crime. A bunch of scenes like that. But the first major big plot development is they're trying to catch Frank selling microprocessors to these Chinese people. And so the whole time Colin's sending Frank messages. He got a little burner phone. Will, the only people that really know Will's an actual cop are the Mark Wahlberg character and Captain Queensman or whatever, Queen something. And so they go to try to bust Frank and his whole crew at this big microprocessing deal with these Chinese people. The Chinese have a lot of automatic weapons. Frank's not too happy about that because he just wants to do a business deal. But they a tense little business interaction. But they end up getting the microprocessors. They're in the back of this warehouse where the police didn't have time to set up cameras or something, and so there's some going back and forth of they can still see a cell phone on. So I think that seems really when they both know there's a rat for sure in both groups. But regardless, the business deal, they sell the microprocessors, and when they pull over the Chinese people's cars, they had light switches in them or something, and they moved the actual product or evidence of the transaction on boats. And so the police did not know that, so the first transaction pretty much goes off without a hitch from the criminal side and the police officers. And also Captain Ellerby is played by Alec Baldwin. I don't know who would let him around a gun anymore. I guess this is obviously a lot older movie, but regardless, he's also in the movie. But he's mad that Captain Ellerby, who's under Captain Queens, whatever, is mad that the camera crew didn't have cameras throughout the whole facility. And so it goes without a hitch. Mark Wahlberg and Captain Queensman approach Frank, and he's just just some interaction under a bridge, and that's about that. Frank dates some chick throughout the movie, minor role, Gwen, the redhead chick. But regardless, pretty halfway through, Colin and Dr. Madeline are dating, but Will and Dr. Madeline hook up definitely, but they're and then they can't see each other anymore. But it's I think Dr. Madeline liked Will because he was open and vulnerable, whereas in Colin she's sensing lying or something. It just wasn't clear to me what exactly the relationship between Dr. Madeline and Will's relationship throughout the movie was. It was obvious what it was with Colin Sullivan, and they're obviously dating. But regardless, they have one sexual encounter, then they're she's I can't be your friend or something. That really is just their relationship wasn't clear as what was developing there. And so after they learn there's a rat, Captain Queens designates Colin Sullivan to be investigate this internal force to find the rat. So he's trying to find himself. He goes to, again, Will's interaction with the police is very limited, and Colin's interaction with Frank is very limited. Will follows Colin to a movie theater where Frank and him are clearly talking to each other. So Will sees, doesn't see the face, but sees who the rat is, and he tries to catch up to him, but never gets a look at the face. Colin notices or whatever and runs away. They meet in a back alley and still haven't seen each other's faces. And it's literally there's a Chinatown truck unloading, and Colin thinks Will is coming up to get him and stabs this random Chinese dude in the chest, and he dies. So he's dead. Yeah. Will Costigan, he interrogates somebody pretty about halfway through the movie, shoots him in the kneecap, and learns that Frank is actually an informant for the FBI. So now you have another added little plot development there. And then what's the next major thing? So now Frank is hardcore trying to figure out who the rat is. He's has everybody write down their bank accounts and information on this envelope, and he turns that over to Colin to have him look into the backgrounds. And so Will approaches Captain Queens about Frank being an informant for the FBI, and Captain Queens is makes sense to him. They have another interaction where they're going to meet on this building top, and so Will gets dismissed from the meeting with Frank about who the rat is, and basically what they're doing is they're seeing if they relay information. They do this job without the normal guys, and they want to see if that information gets back to Colin to see if Will is the rat. And so, but Will only responds to Captain Queensman and the Mark Wahlberg character, so the information never gets to Colin at all. So they don't think Will's the rat there. But then quickly after that, Will goes to meet with Captain Queens on top of this building. Both the police, Colin is running the police crew that's watching them, and tells Frank that Queens is meeting with the rat now to go kill him. And so Will gets away, because Will and Captain Queens are the ones talking. Will gets away, runs down the fire escape, and then they throw Captain Queensman off the top of the building, and he dies. And so that's really what happens there. Colin Sullivan tells them not to engage. One of the police officers says "fuck it" and starts shooting at the criminals. One of the criminals gets hit in the chest, and then one of the police officers, I believe, gets hit or gets killed. Regardless, an injured mob dude in their hangout club area. And now, again, right after they were sure Will wasn't the rat, this dude that was shot was he's bleeding out literally on the couch. I don't know, can't go to the hospital with his mob stuff or whatever. And he basically calls out Will again. And he's I gave you the wrong address, but you showed up to the right one, right as he's bleeding out and dying. So Will was almost about to pull his gun on that guy, but he dies off real quick. And so Will goes home, and at this point, it seems like he's pretty good on being not the rat for Frank. But regardless, what happens next? Well, the next thing is they're selling drugs. That's another minor development. Will gets, one of his background stories is, he sells drugs with his cousin to build his criminal rapport. And he's from the south side of Boston where this takes place. And so, but regardless, the next big enterprise or drug or business interaction is a drug deal. And so they go up to do this big drug deal, and again, they're getting tailed, and Frank has Colin call off the tail, but then the police show up there anyway. But at this point, Colin also learns that Frank is an FBI informant. So Colin, who was steadfastly loyal to Frank, is now pretty much just out for himself, and trying to see if Frank has given up anybody else, if he has anything on him, told anybody about him, and isn't so loyal to Frank at this point. Regardless, the Will again kind of sneaks out the back, which gets away from the deal. And then there's a big gunfight. Mr. French gets killed. Pretty much the entire crew of Frank's crew gets killed by the police officers opening fire on them. And so regardless, pretty much the whole crew gets killed, but Frank is either slightly injured or gets away, and then calls Colin and hears his phone ringing, and Colin's right around the corner, and Frank can hear the phone ring out loud, and Colin confronts Frank about the FBI stuff, and Frank tries to shoot him. Colin pulls a gun and shoots him like into like an excavator or a big, not some sort of excavator, but just like one of the wider ones. And he's like sitting there thinking he's dead. Frank tries to shoot him one more time after being shot a couple times, and then Frank gets killed. And so you have Colin, who is now the hero. He's arrested or taken down Frank Costello. Will Costigan still doesn't know Colin is the rat. Colin, I do believe at this point he figures out Will is they kind of figure out at the same time. So when Colin's getting awarded for being a great cop taking down Frank, Will is now for like the first time, because he never goes into the police office, goes into the police headquarters to give a statement or to get his money or to do whatever. And when he's doing that, Colin at that point, I'm pretty sure, initially realizes that, certainly knows that Will is now was the informant, but Frank is dead, and Colin's just doing his thing to save his own ass. And so he has to go look up his name, something, and what he wants to do is delete the record of Will Costigan ever being an undercover informant, so he's just not a cop and there's no record of anything. And the only other person, so once Queenman's dies, Captain Ellerby, the Alec Baldwin character, is the acting chief, and the Mark Wahlberg character quits, just basically on the site. And so he's out of the movie for probably the last 30-40 minutes until the very last scene. And so he's kind of out of the picture for a while, but while Colin Sullivan is looking up Will Costigan's information, Will notices that envelope that Frank had them all write their information down earlier. So at that point, Will is absolutely certain that that Colin is the criminal, or is the rat. They call each other a couple of times on the phones. They don't talk, and it's just a minor development there. But regardless, they both know each other now, and Will gives Dr. Madeline just an insurance policy, just if anything happens to me, publish this or give this to somebody. He also mails the tapes, and so basically once Frank dies, and he trusts Will the most, I guess. So the lawyer of Frank gives him the tapes of Frank recording this stuff to have insurance on for himself and against his guys for the FBI or whatever. And so Will mails those to Colin. Colin's in the shower. Dr. Madeline opens them up and plays them. It's just audio recordings. And so Dr. Madeline, who's now pregnant with Colin's kid, is I don't want anything to do with you, Colin. You're a liar. And so that happens. No, I'm not exactly sure why. Again, there's a lot of bodies in this movie. Why Colin would have killed Dr. Madeline. But regardless, they go to the well, no, this isn't even, something else happens first. So basically, Will is now going to call out and arrest Colin for being the rat. So they go back to the same building where Captain Queens, whatever, was thrown off and killed, and Will arrests Colin. And so, Colin's you're not a cop anymore, there's no record of you. And one of the other, because remember, Colin was the head of some special investigative division, and Will hasn't given his information to anybody about what he knows about Colin. So there's this character who's also another well-known actor, I forget his name, but a character just named Brown, Officer Brown, goes up to the top of this building and sees Will holding Colin hostage, and it's drop the gun, let go of the sergeant. And so Colin's or Will's no, I have all this information. And so, he's holding Colin as a meat shield, and Brown's holding on him. And so they're trying to maneuver down, they're not sure who to trust. And so they get on the elevator, and as they're going down, right when they're going down, right when the door opens, Will gets shot in the head. So Will is killed pretty, I was not expecting that kill shot there, but which is good. Anything that's novel to me, that just it isn't off-putting for the plot, why did that just happen? What the fuck? But that was whoa, what's going on here? At that point, I'm just thinking, good guy arrests bad guy, end of the movie. And so I was glad to see, that shape up. Was not expecting that at all. And basically, there was another guy named Berrigan, who was in the special division, or at least in the police department, who was hey, Colin, you think Frank only had one person in the police department? And he's now it's just me and you. And Colin's all right, sick. At which point, Colin's character clearly realizes Berrigan's the only last person that knows who he is, so he just whacks Berrigan instantly. Berrigan saves Colin, and then Colin just whacks him in return. So he is now quickly dead. Brown gets killed also with Will. So he's dead. Colin is alive. and then pretty much the final scene is Colin, which I thought it would have been better if it just ended there where Colin gets away as just the bad guy, like just the antagonist or one of the bad guys gets away as opposed to the good guys always come in. Now I wasn't exactly clear on the exact ending. So Colin comes back to his apartment, and right when he walks in there, he sees the Mark Wahlberg character in there, clearly ready to do a hit. He's got his gloves on, his shoes taped up, a silencer, and Colin's like, he literally just says, okay, and then Mark shoots him. The Mark Wahlberg character shoots him. And so it wasn't clear to me if Mark was also an informant, cleaning up his last loose end to Colin, but I think that was just Mark Wahlberg was just, again, being an actual police officer killing the rat. But it wasn't clear to me as how to Mark Wahlberg's character would have known Colin because he's been out of the office for so long. So again, I wasn't clear on exactly whose team Mark was on at the very, very end. And so obviously the reference of The Departed is the dead people in the movie. And so I liked it, thoroughly entertaining, thought it was a little long, wasn't exactly clear on the ending. Definitely liked Will being, more of the protagonist of the movie, getting killed, just switching stuff up. So a little long, good action movie. Nothing super similar movies or major themes, any crime thriller, major themes, cops and robbers. So that is what you have for my first video today. I'm going to continue to pump out as much content as I can as the entire world continue to act like I do not exist. It is the most profound and extensive torture that has ever existed. Nobody gives a fuck about me. My life is disgusting. So thank you for watching another movie review, which nobody will watch. So I'll see you in the next one.